Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Good Morning Soul. I hope you're all having a fine and wonderful and healthy day. I assume I say like, oh, it's beautiful outside, but it could always just be shitty as fuck wherever you're watching this. So if it looks shitty as fuck out there, then I, wish you well and hope it gets better soon. But anyway, today on Good Morning Soul, I wanted to talk about the word aesthetics. And aesthetics is a word I've been using way too much in my videos lately. Aesthetic is a word, it could mean a couple of number things, but to sum it down, it usually means like the style, the like way it's being presented. For instance, if I say the aesthetics of Disney, I would assume, like, if we're talking about Disney animated movies, it would be like that squeaky clean Disney, like, happy vibe, where everything's like kind of polished and nice, and the music is generally happy and stuff like that. So if I were to say this movie has like a Disney aesthetic, that would be what I would mean. And as time has gone on, I've kind of realized that people's senses aren't all correctly lined up because we have so many different backgrounds. We're all from different places, and even genetically, we're all made up of different things. And even like what we eat, what we, consume, the things that are going into our body, they really do shape the world around us. For instance, like the way people listen to music sometimes, I start to wonder, like, are we even listening to like the same thing? Sure, we can all describe it like the same kind of way, but like the little nerves in our brain that go off, like perhaps like yours are different than mine. For instance, like when a lot of people, if you put loud ass like black metal on in a casual crowded space, it's not gonna get the same reaction as it would in like a place where that would normally be played. And if I played like this loud boom bat, trap monster beat with some black dude just going at it, like that's gonna get a reaction too. And of course, familiarity is like a big part of that. For instance, if you listen to that music all the time, once you hear it again, you're familiar with it, you understand it. Understanding art is like the first step to truly appreciating it. For instance, I don't really listen to that much country music, and partly is like I'm still in the beginning stages of understanding it. I still don't know these country artists. I don't know like the history. I don't know the background. For instance, Disney movies, you understand the story structure. I understand Disney movies like are usually about a character wanting something, them going on a journey to get that thing, and it's usually involving like a princess. There's going to be romance. I'm used to the scenarios that is presented to me, and I'm used to the style. I'm used to all of that. But if I were just a grown-ass man who's never seen a Disney movie before, maybe the polish and the story structure would bother me. Like The Little Mermaid, like, is a little bit more girly, and I think I didn't watch that as a kid. So when I watched it kind of like in my teenage years, it was kind of just like, oh, this is kind of like the worst part of like Disney movies. The main character is kind of whiny, and the aesthetic is like it's not really all that polishing to me, or all that nuanced to me. Whereas someone who grew up on that and appreciated it when they were young, when their brain was still forming, obviously might like that a lot better. And really, I compare art to food a lot. For instance, some people say like, why would you give this album a 3 like out of 10? Like, why you hate this album, but could you make a better one? And usually my argument to that would be like A Dose of Buckley, the YouTube channel, made this argument, which is you don't have to be a 5-star chef to know the difference between good food and bad food. If someone handed you overcooked or like slimy, gross food, surely you know it's bad just by looking at it. And I think people's taste buds are a big example of the way that they interpret senses and how we all interpret them differently. Sure, like for instance, I don't like Doritos. And I really didn't eat Doritos when I was young. But if you ate Doritos when you were young, I'm sure like maybe that clicked something in your brain. Or maybe certain tastes that I don't like or that you do like. Like, I'm not that picky, so I'm trying to get a better example. And I know there's going to be a flame war just because I don't like Doritos. Someone's going to comment, "You don't like fucking Doritos? You monster!" That's usually the reaction I get. What's a better example? My girlfriend doesn't like tomatoes. So maybe she just had a bad instance when she was young with tomatoes. Maybe someone just gave her a bad one, and ever since her brain has clicked in a certain type of way. And I think aesthetics can work the same way. Like, if you listen to like a really bad metal album or something, and everyone around you just hated it, and everyone gave it like bad looks, surely like that part of your brain just said, okay, like metal music is bad. So that's how you looked at it as for like the rest of your life. Whereas like food can work the same kind of way. Maybe you said tomatoes are bad. You don't like tomatoes, and for your whole life you didn't like tomatoes. But a lot of food that I didn't like when I was young, Doritos being an exception, I like now. Like, what was some of the stuff? Like, usually anything like weirdly crunchy, or like, I didn't like caramel, I didn't like croutons, stuff like that. And sure, I don't like any of that stuff now, but there was a couple of things that I know I didn't like as a kid, but I ended up liking because I think I took it out of that space in my brain. And, you know, at the end of the day, there's some things that aren't gonna change. And that's the same way with aesthetics. Some people are never gonna like Disney movies because of the way they look. Some people aren't gonna like metal music because of the way it sounds. And that might just be because your brain, like, since it was forming, has like morphed its way around that, if that makes sense. Like, people can get traumatized from, like, let's say if they were sexually molested as a child. If you watch The Girl in the Dragon Tattoo, you might not like it just because there's like a rape scene, right? And that's completely fine. I think we have to kind of treat aesthetics like food. I remember Mike Seatown, he's a music reviewer, and he said, you know, opinions are just like opinions, and like you don't have to always explain why you like something. Like, he wasn't talking about aesthetics, but like it works in this conversation. You don't have to explain it. Like, why do you like certain foods? Sometimes it's just because your brain enjoys it. Your brain enjoys that stimulus created by that sound. And I don't think sometimes you don't need that much more of an explanation than that. Like, maybe as a kid, like, I just really like soft food. So like as time went on, like, oh, I really like ice cream and like pancakes and all these other soft food. And I don't think, maybe that's just something that happened to me as a kid, and it's never really changed since then. Like, maybe my mom gave me too much applesauce or something, and my brain has always just been like, yeah, this is what food is, or something like that. So, and if our brain isn't necessarily always changing, but our body is. So if our body is just continuously given the same information as it continues to change over and over again, like our cells are just continuously dying and, you know, recreating themselves, duplicating, and then dying over again, and it's this endless cycle. And if it's given the same stimulus and information from your brain, like, maybe that's just something you can't change. Maybe I'm never gonna like Doritos. And maybe you're never gonna like this certain aesthetic with this art medium. Maybe you're never gonna like a certain color, and you just don't like that color or something. That's not necessarily a bad thing. So I think when people like people try to review objectively as if every movie or every album falls under this like certain scale. Like we're all watching the same thing, but we're not watching the same thing. We're not listening to the same thing. When people taste food, they don't taste the same thing. Like it's the same food, but it's the brain activity is just different because they're different people genetically, and like I said, what goes into their body, what they're consuming, it creates something else. Like you can't force that person to have the same brain waves as you. People are going to react to stimulus differently. And you know, when people say like I just like this because I do, I kind of go back to this argument like aesthetics can be enjoyed like how food is. Like I just like it because I do. Like when I describe how I like a certain food, like it's hard. Like it's hard to review food. Like you can go into like the meta, like how it tastes, how it like makes you like feel, I guess. But you can't like go into like why does my brain enjoy this other than it does, you know? But anyway, that was a bit of a tangent. I'll see you guys tomorrow morning. This was some food for thought. See what I did there? Because food, it's in the okay. Anyway, I'll see you guys tomorrow morning with another episode of Good Morning Soul. And with that, I leave you.